Alright, so this video is a little bit different from my regular just training vlogs. I had a question in one of my comments the other day by, I think, Priscilla. I think that's how you pronounce the name. Sorry if I butchered it. I'll put the comment somewhere on the screen, but basically it was asking me about, she was asking me about if I had any videos sharing my starting point and my journey. She was talking about kind of her experience and in YouTube. And basically, if you can't already tell, I am still fairly new to the entire lifting game. I think I only have about, I'd say, give or take, like 4 years of experience, and a majority of that isn't even like real lifting experience. I'll talk about it in a second, but I've only really been seriously lifting for the kind of duration of this channel when I first got kind of gym equipment for my own home, and I think that's been around 6 months now. So, but that's been like kind of seriously kind of focusing on it. But I'll talk about my entire experience. When I first started lifting, it was just the beginning of high school. I still am very young, so there's that. I wasn't really seriously lifting. I was kind of just going to the weight room and kind of just lifting on any machine I really saw, just because my gym teacher was kind of talking about it and there were some other guys there doing it too. I found it really interesting, and I think that was actually a big part about why I kind of started lifting in the first place, because I found it fun, because it was a fun environment that I was in. And I did make some decent progress. I can't say that I made none, just because I was kind of doing every machine there, and kind of the accumulation of all the machines there was pretty good. I didn't do any like free weights like this at the start, just because I was kind of scared of it, which I don't believe is pretty good advice, to be honest. I think you should probably start off with at least some free weights if you are strong enough to do it. I know like a regular bar is about 45 pounds, so if you can't bench 45 pounds to start off with, that's fine. You could probably do like lighter dumbbells, or you maybe even get like a lighter bar, and that would work. But I do believe starting off with just kind of the basic compound movements is a pretty good idea. That's what I did, at least. I did 5x5 on a majority of the lifts that I did. It was kind of just like 5 sets of 5 repetitions. I don't think I went very close to failure, because I was still focusing on form. I feel like that's a big thing you should do at the start. Focus on form. Even kind of throughout your entire lifting journey, like what I'm doing here is, I think recording your sets is a really good idea, because you can kind of see your form and see if you really have any structural issues, and kind of like if your knees are caving during a squat, or if your elbows are flaring, or your shoulders are coming up during a bench. Just small stuff like that you can't really feel, but you can see if you do record. I'd also mention to eat enough food. At least for me, I found my appetite's pretty low, and eating back then was really hard. But when I did start eating, I saw much more progress, and when I wasn't eating, I would hit more plateaus much more often. But if you do have a higher appetite, usually maybe another eating approach would be better. You could check out some better channels on YouTube. There's a bunch of stuff about eating on YouTube, but at least for me, eating more, and especially like protein and just carbs in general, fast, just eating more in general was a good idea. I'd also say to adjust your volume accordingly. I know I just said do like 5x5 on basically every lift. What I used to do is I would do 5x5 on I would do the first lift that I found the hardest to do, at least technicality wise. Like for me, the squat has been very difficult for me over the course of my entire career. I don't know why. I think my squat now is pretty decent, but at the start, I think I wasn't really into sports much as a young kid. So my ankle mobility was really bad, and my hip mobility and all that stuff just wasn't really good. So squatting was pretty difficult for me, but I would put squats at the start of my workouts, and I did full body, basically. I just did full body 3 times a week. I feel like that's a pretty standard, basic, beginner program. I put squats at the beginning just because they were the hardest for me technically, and I could really dial in and focus on them. And I put the easiest ones at the end. For me, deadlift, surprisingly, was just very easy to learn. I don't know why. I guess it's just my build, or maybe I just naturally am good at deadlifting. But there was that, so I'd kind of go squat, benching, deadlifting, and I would do some other accessory movements. I feel like accessory movements are very important, like to target your back. Your back is very important, especially your rear delts, to complement the bench pressing, because if you only do benching, you're gonna run into some muscular issues. So I feel like some barbell rows, you've seen those on my channel, those are really good. You might want to do some machine work too. Machine work is still good. I want you to focus on the compounds like what I did, but machine work still is good. If you want to have some bigger arms, you can go do curls, extensions, stuff like that. It's not a bad idea. But I'd say to focus on the compounds first, just to kind of build a base of strength. But I'm also saying, if the 5x5 is too much volume for you, which for me it was okay, but as I actually got stronger, the weights started to be a lot heavier, and 5x5 just didn't feel really good. I lowered it down to 4x5. I don't know why. For some reason, the 5th set always just felt like so fatiguing compared to all the other ones. It just didn't feel worth it to me, so I did 4x5, and that worked perfectly fine. It's still what I'm doing now alongside all my accessories. And so just make sure it's individually based. You don't want to crank your volume up so high that you can't really recover and you're always sore, but you don't want it to be so low that you're not making enough progress. I feel like doing that's pretty good. And I'd also say to just put in the time. I said I've been lifting for like give or take 4 years technically, but I wasn't really consistent throughout that. As I said, I was just kind of doing machines and just running around like this. But when I actually started to really dial into my training and started eating consistently, training consistently, sleeping consistently, that's a big one. That's when I really saw my progress go up. I'm still not really at a very advanced level of progress, but I'm getting there. I've had fairly consistent progress. I'd also say to remember to progressively overload, either add reps or weight. How I do it at least is, let's say you're doing the 4x5 method and you're just doing 4 sets of 5. The first set, let's say you get 5, and the second set 5, third set you might get 4 or 3, and then fourth set you might get 4 or 3 again, or maybe even less. If you're getting too kind of low of the repetitions on the later sets, I either try to just lower the weight and kind of work on that kind of endurance, or I would say to just cut the sets and do other exercises, because maybe you're just accumulating too much fatigue in that one exercise. But I'd say to either try to add repetitions, so let's say you got like 5, 5, 4, 3, I would just next time try to do 5, 5, 5, 5, and if you can get that, that'd be good. You added a few repetitions on the later sets. That's still progressively overloading. Once you hit 5, 5, 5, 5, or like however many sets you're doing, I'd say you should just go up in weight, because then if your reps drop down a little bit, then you can just bump them back up later. I feel like this method would be a little bit better for kind of like maybe sets of 8 or sets of 10, because that way you're still getting a little more stimulus. Once you go below like 3 repetitions, I don't find the progress to be as good, at least. But I don't know, if it works for you, I didn't find it to work for me. If I was kind of going under 3 reps, then it was just, I was grinding too much usually. And also, just to end it all off, I'd say to have fun in your training. If you're not having fun in your training, you're probably not going to do any of the other stuff that I said. You're not really going to be consistent. You don't really care about it. If you have fun in your training, it doesn't even have to be squat, bench, and deadlift. It could be whatever lifts you like, as long as they're kind of the basis of compounds. You see me doing some weird variations like front squats, and I think I've done like deficit deadlifts, and I don't think I've done them on the channel yet, but there's like good mornings and RDLs and stuff like that. You can do just any variations of like the hip hinges and knee flexions and presses and stuff like that, whichever you find fun. You don't even kind of need to do that stuff technically, just whatever you guys have. If you have dumbbell stuff, you can do dumbbell stuff as well, but just make sure you're having fun, and that way it'll kind of fuel the consistency of the entire lifting career. And that's pretty much it about kind of at least my basis of lifting and my journey. I don't think I have many actual videos of like me within the first years of my lifting, just because I never did it back then. But that's pretty much my starting point and journey. If you guys have any other questions, you can also ask them in the comments, but this is just a fairly long video about it. Alright, see ya.